Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for a little bit of delay there. We will be starting in a couple of minutes. All right, well, welcome everybody to Math All Around Us and VPK. We're very appreciative that you will take the time to be in this webinar with us today. Let's go ahead and get started. We would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Gretel Arroyo, and I am a Quality and Education Coaching Specialist for the Early Learning Coalition of Broward. Currently, I have the pleasure of working with various providers throughout Broward County, supporting directors and teachers in their VPK program. And now I would like to present to you my colleague, Anna Avalos Atkinson.
Thank you, Gretel. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar session. My name is Anna Avalos Atkinson, and as my colleague, Gretel, I am a coach for the Early Learning Coalition, and we work directly with providers in the community, supporting their experiences and their interactions with children. We're so very happy that you've joined us today, and we hope that you will experience some thought-provoking moments and also some reflection moments with this webinar.
Thank you. So we would like to also discuss a couple webinar housekeeping rules. You're going to see on your screen a orange rectangle with a white arrow pointing either to the right or to the left, depending on where that panel is. Go ahead and open that now. You're going to look down, you'll see questions, the word questions. There'll be a triangle next to it. Open that now. That is where you will be able to type in your question or your comments throughout the training. We do love the interaction. We want to know if you're accomplishing any of these things in your classroom already, or is this something you're looking forward to trying in the next school year. Also, go ahead and download the handouts. There should be 3 handouts. They are available to you. The certificate is going to be emailed to you after the training. I'm going to go into more detail about that in the next slide. And again, go ahead and download your documents now. So regarding attendance and credits, June trainings are for in-service hours only. Please refer to the ELC website at elcbroward.org for information about other possible stipend opportunities. Your training certificate will be emailed within 24 hours and sent to the email address you entered in your registration. In order to be marked as attended, you must log in on the computer or on the app. It's called the GoToWebinar app on your phone. So just calling in on your phone will not register attendance, and you will not be able to receive a certificate as attended. So good way to see this is if you cannot see the presentation on the screen, then we cannot see you. If you were to need to call in on your phone for the audio, because you cannot do that on your computer, on the screen you see there what is the phone number and the access code. So we would like to start off by asking you a question. How do you feel about teaching VPK math? So we're going to do this as a poll. Give me a moment as I launch the poll for you. And you're going to see it come up on your screen. So how do you feel about teaching VPK math? There's 3 options. The first one says, it's an easy domain for me to teach in my classroom. Second one is, it's a hard domain for me to teach in my classroom. Or if you're a little bit like me, it's more of a mix between option 1 and option 2. So go ahead and put in your answers. We'll give that a moment. Anna, what would be your vote for this?
I'm with you. I would say more of a mix between option 1 and 2.
Very true.
Let's see what the audience says.
Okay. We'll give them a moment to continue to answer that. We're about halfway through the polling. I see most people have voted. We're just going to give them a couple more seconds to do that. Okay. So let's see our results. What do we see? Oh, it's kind of a mix.
Wow.
Yes. So 60% are like Anne and I. You thought that it's more of a mixture between it's easy and it's kind of hard. And the rest of you said it's an easy domain. Awesome, that's great. I'm very happy. I would love to see your classrooms.
Me too.
Yeah. So sometimes our own life experience in learning math can affect our disposition to teach math skills to children. This can go either way. If you are an excellent math learner, then your disposition to teaching math can be so much more positive than a person that possibly struggled learning math throughout school, then maybe their disposition to teaching math can be a lot less positive. So a great way for all of us to move forward is for all of us to start at the same starting point, and that is at the standards. And we're going to be learning more about them throughout the webinar today. So the purpose of this training is to give VPK teachers an overview of the mathematical thinking standards for 4-year-olds. We will be reviewing the 6 components of the mathematical thinking domain, which are number sense, number and operations, patterns, geometry, spatial relations, measurement, and data. Participants will learn how to find a 4-year standards on the Florida Early Learning Standards website. And you will be provided examples, strategies, and resources to help you implement the mathematical thinking standards in your classrooms. So we would like to bust some myths about preschool math today. Let's take a look at this one. It says, if children do not learn how to count from 1 to 100, they are not ready for kindergarten. This is false. The standard calls for children to be able to count and identify the number sequence 1 to 31. We're going to be looking at that later. Now we're going to watch a video from Vanderbilt University. It's a research by Bethany Riddle Johnson and Erica Sibbert about 3 math myths for preschool children. Now please check the audio on your computers so you can be able to hear the video. Okay, so thank you to Erica for the video and for that information. Now I want to review the three myths that she mentioned. She talked about preschool math is all about numbers. A myth is that preschool math is all about numbers, especially basic skills like counting, and that's not true. In preschool math, there's a lot more. There's many other skills that are learned, like spatial, patterning, being able to introduce children to to comparison and numerical magnitudes, like 4 is bigger than 3, and even addition and subtraction. She also discussed that math, a myth is that we think that math should only be taught at school. And that's actually not true. Math is actually learned first at home. It's a lot more, it's easier for children to learn math through their parents when they go, for example, to the playground, or they go to the grocery store, or to the laundromat. And the third myth that she talked about is that, this is one that I actually needed to bust for myself, because this is the one that says not everyone can understand math. And that is actually not true. Math is for everyone. When teachers and parents approach math with a positivity, it is easier for the children to learn it. So let's refrain from saying, I'm not a math person, as that reinforces a negative stereotype about math. So that's something I had to practice when I was a teacher. So now we're going to learn how to get the standards in hard copy and how to find them online as well. These images are the front covers to the 2 versions of the hard copies of the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards. These standards came out in 2017. The image on the left is for the short version, and the short version it just has the standards and the benchmarks without any pictures or examples. So it's kind of like a quick way to look at the standards. The image on the right is the front cover for the longer version, and this one brings examples, glossary, pictures, and even book lists. So please take a note of the website on the screen. This is the site where you can find them. Both versions are equally important to have when lesson planning. In the handout tab, you will be able to download a complete set of the short version of the standards. We recommend you print them in color, as each domain has a different color. So what is your experience with the standards? Please add your comment in the questions box. We want to know how has your experience been in the past regarding the standards? So as you're adding your comment, I would like to show to you, we are going to do a quick tour of the website. This is the website, that front page for the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards on the Office of Early Learning website. Please take note of this website, as it is very long and it is a little complicated. We encourage you to write it down or take a screenshot of this website. When you go to the website, it's going to look like this image on the screen. Have a look around to get familiar with the resources available to you. Then once you're ready to find the standards, click on the standards tab, like you see here in the orange arrow. So let me look at a few of these comments regarding the standards. I see that people are saying they're very helpful. They're easy enough to understand and to use. They keep changing. They do keep changing every once in a while to update. I see the comment that says, I understand the standards, but how to implement them in the lesson plan can be a little, even public schools are always updating, not really consistent. That is true. They are consistently updating them, but these have been around since 2017. And they said useful and helpful to use as a refresher. And somebody wrote, it's also helpful to keep us on track. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. So moving on to the next slide. Once you click on the standards, it will lead you to this website where you'll find the icons for the 8 domains. Click on the age range you would like to see the standards for, and then click on the domain. For VPK, we would choose 4 years to kindergarten, and then click on mathematical thinking for this webinar. If you scroll down, it's going to look like this. It's going to give you an explanation, an introduction to that particular domain. And then it's also, if you continue to scroll down, you'll see the names of the components that are associated to this particular domain. So in the case of mathematical thinking, it has 6 components. If you click on that down arrow, it's going to look like this, where you'll see the standards for number sense. So as we can see, number sense has 7 standards. So go ahead and click on this information icon so it can open up to the particular information of that standard. So once it opens, it's going to give you more information of that particular standard only. It's going to give you examples of what children can do, educators and families can do in the classroom and at home. And some standards are also going to have, you'll see here, a video link. And on that video link, it's going to give you examples exactly on how to do that particular standard. They're usually very short, not more than about 3 minutes. And they're also going to show you examples or ideas from a company called Room. Room is a tool designed to help families provide science-based tips and tools to inspire them to turn everyday moments into brain-building moments. And that is how you can find the 4-year-old standards online. So it's about 5 steps. Again, please take note of the website. And if you would like to get this step-by-step information from today's webinar, please reach out to Anna or myself through our email. We will be presenting our email address at the end of today's webinar. So what is mathematical thinking? Mathematics is everywhere. It helps children make sense of their world by observing and interacting with their environment. For young children, math is about number knowledge, patterns, size, shape awareness, and spatial awareness. Math is easily integrated with all learning areas and throughout daily activities. And those words are highlighted so we can remember that math is about the children being able to observe, interact with their environment, and integrate it throughout their day. So how important do you think math is for the children's development and in your classroom? So let's watch a video from Mind Research Institute where researchers have found that early math education between the ages of 3 to 5 is critical for cognitive growth and future learning success. When watching this video, please reflect on the information given and then add your comment to the question box. One moment while I share with you the video. That was a great video with a lot of great information. And what stood out to me from that video is math nurtures the brain for future success. So we would like to know what stood out to you from the video. What is something that you had a aha moment, or something maybe you already knew, but it just brought back to your memory? Please add that comment to the question box. And is there anything that stood out to you from that video?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a great video. It's interesting to think about how the brain really works, right? And how the different parts of the brain have different responsibilities, so to speak, to focus attention, to help children problem solve, to think outside the box, to work on memory. And these are all skills that they definitely need, and they are enhanced by doing math. So definitely math is very important for young children.
Thank you, thank you. I see some comments here. It's the management of shapes or focus. Yes, there's that part of the brain, those three parts of the brains that react when we're doing math. I was telling Anna when we were getting prepared for today, it's like, oh, now I know what I was so tired every time I did math in school. You know, it really requires almost like all of your brain capacity. It's about that logic and the thinking. Thank you for that comment. I like, yeah, she participant said she liked how they managed the shapes, that management of shapes. And we're going to be talking more about that later on. Okay, so we would like to ask you a question now. We would like to know, what do you think is the best way to introduce math concepts to children? So we're going to launch a poll. You're going to have two options. Doesn't mean that those are the only options, but we want to know what you think. So what do you think is the best way to introduce math concepts to children? Is it by helping them trace, copy, or write numbers? Or is it by integrating math into the different areas of learning? What do you think? We'll give you a moment. Okay. Okay, we're almost close to closing the poll. Please don't go ahead and put in your answer now. Okay, let me know if you see the results. Okay, well, here we are. 91% of you said integrating math into different areas of learning is the way you think is the best way. And 9% said by tracing letters or helping them trace numbers, I'm sorry, or copy them or helping them hand over hand. Now, helping children trace, copy, or write numbers is a good practice. However, it's not the most effective way to introduce math concepts. Children learn math more effectively when it's introduced during reading time or through a science experiment or a fun, active activity that engages their critical thinking. So let's move on to the standards and see how that is done. There are 6 components in which children demonstrate mathematical skills throughout their entire VPK school year. So all the standards we're going to be doing an overview for, it's not something you do right away day one. It's something that takes it takes a year to implement, and it's well planned out through the year. So the first component we're going to be talking about today is number sense. So what is number sense? Number sense is the children's ability to recognize quantity, count, and construct sets, identify relationship between numbers, and understand how to use numbers in a variety of ways. you will see that you already are doing many of these activities and these standards in your classroom. Now you're going to be able to match that action with the name of the standard. Please take note of the activities or strategies that can assist you in your VPK classroom. So let's begin. The first number sense has 7 standards. The first one says, subsizes up to 5 objects immediately recognizes quantity without counting. And I'm going to be very honest with you. The first time I saw that, I said, what is subsizing? And subsizing means the child's ability to immediately recognize and name a set of objects without counting. So it's the child's ability to say, hey, look, there's 3 carrots on my lunch box, on my lunch plate, and or be able to recognize a set of objects up to 5. Say there's 2 girls in the house area and there's 1 boy in the block area. Standard 2 is count and identifies the number sequence 1 to 31. So this goes back to that myth buster that we want children to count to 100. The standard only asks for children to count 1 to 31. And you do this the best, most effective way through a number line. So you want to make sure you have those numbers out in your center time or anywhere in your classroom where you can go back and use them in a meaningful way. You want to give children the opportunity to count out loud as many times as possible, 1 to 31. However, if children are able to continue to keep counting, yes, go ahead and let them do that. However, the standard only asks for 1 to 31. They're able to also identify the sequence. And you'll see that even in AP 1, 2, and 3, they're going to ask you to count them in sequence, and they're going to ask you to count them backwards from 10 to 0. So that's that standard that they are referring to. Standard 3 says demonstrates one-to-one correspondence when counting objects placed in a row. And I wanna highlight here that it says 1 to 15 and beyond. So whenever we read the standard, exactly what those numbers are. So the one before said 1 to 31. This one says 1 to 15. That is exactly what they are looking for. So this is the one-to-one correspondence. Teachers would want to model this for children, because I've seen the experience where the child is counting so fast that he double counts the same object, or they count so slow that they miss some objects. So you want to take the child's finger and just help them count one object at a time and at a slow pace. Standard 4 says identifies the last number spoken and says how many. And the concept of how many is that word cardinality. Cardinality means knowing that the last number named when counting represents the total number of objects. How many of you have had the experience that when children are counting and they're done counting, you say how many, they look at you, they're thinking, but they don't really know what to answer, so they start counting again. So that child is where he's at that place where we can scaffold his learning to start learning the answer that the last number is the answer to how many. And we're going to watch a video about this when we're done with number sense. Standard 5 says constructs and counts sets of objects 1 to 10 and beyond. So this is the child's ability to put together 10 blocks to finish a tower, for example. Or if you see here a picture of this little girl setting up for lunch, it's when her teacher says, hey, can you please go get 7 mats for your 7 friends? And she is able to follow through and complete that set. Standard 6 and 7, number sense is the one that has the most standards, by the way. So 6 and 7, they're right here on your screen. Number 6 says uses counting and matching strategies to find which is more, less than, or equal to. So those are 3 actions there. So you want to model this for children. This is not a concept that comes naturally to them. This is something that the teacher identifies and plans well thought out activities that makes it engaging for them to have fun with this. You could do this through charts. You could do this through small group, through large group. You could do this in the playground. It could be anywhere. This is also a comparison type question. You could do this in books. So as you see here is a cute little picture of these little chicks, it seems, and there's three on one side and two on the other side. So you would say this box has more than this box. Standard 7, it says reads and writes some numerals 1 to 10 using appropriate activities. And again, it's 1 through 10. And I know a lot of times we want the children to continue to learn to write their numbers as the year goes on. As long as they are ready to do that, then go ahead and do that. However, the standard asks for 1 through 10. So you want to do this in context. So it says here, the child is able to write the numbers 1 through 10 when writing a cooking recipe. So how much more fun it is for me to write a cooking recipe about this burger that I've been talking about in large group versus writing the number 1 over and over and over and over again that has no context to me. So that's more, that's the way to integrate it throughout the day. And just as they're learning other domains, you're integrating the math concepts as well. So how do we do number sense in the classroom? Children can count out loud during transitions, in large group, or even use the calendar in that context of being able to count out loud, right? Or count 2 groups to determine which one has the same, which one has less than, or which one has more. Or a child can say, hey, I have 3 markers. Or you can even prompt the child if you see a very small group of objects on a table or somewhere where he cannot or she cannot get confused, and say, hey, how many water bottles are over there? And allow the child to tell you whatever number they think as you're teaching them how to subsidize. Or children are able to point to one item at a time and count them. So how can teachers teach number sense in the classroom? Here are just a couple ideas. You can ask the children how many after counting the birds in a book. Tell the playground helper to go get 6 balls from the equipment box. Model slowly how to use that one-to-one correspondence, and put a number line up to help the children identify the number sequence 1 through 31. So now we're going to watch a video. It's called Supporting Mathematical Development in Young Children, Cardinality. Let me watch this for you. Okay, that was a great video. We're also going to put that resource for you at the end. So if you want to go back and rewatch those videos, we completely recommend for you to do that. What stood out to me from this video is how they integrated cardinality throughout the child's play. So, for example, is when that teacher asks the child, "So how many tickets do you need to buy?" Right, and it helps the child to develop this skill in a context of play. And she immediately said, "Number one is my sister." So what stood out to you? What would you like to try in your classroom? You can go, please go ahead and write your comment in the question box as we move along. So component number 2 is what is numbers and operation. So it's number and operation. So what is it? Number and operation is about exploring quantities and understanding that joining and separating changes the size of sets. It is the foundation of arithmetic and early development and understanding of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Number operations only has 2 standards. So let's look at them. The first one says explores quantities up to 8. So that's important we remember, up to 8, using objects, fingers, and dramatic play to solve real-world joining and separating problems. So for example, it's the child's ability where the teacher identifies for the child the ability to add or separate from a set. So the child will state that there are 7 horses on the farm after a friend added 1 more horse. So they had 6. Their friend brought in 1 more, and the child can identify that now they are 7. He or she is able to add. Or a child will state that there are fewer crayons in the tub because the teacher took the color red and black to the other table. So even though they cannot subtract specifically the number, they're able to tell that there are fewer crayons. So once children have had the ability to count meaningfully, as well as explore the concepts of less than, more than, or equal to, they will begin to notice that sets are changed when joining, so when adding, or they are changed when separating or subtracting objects from the set. The teacher will be able to identify this for the children during their everyday play and throughout well-planned activities. Standard 2 says begins to demonstrate how to compose and decompose. So they're very similar, right? It's about addition and subtraction. Again, up to 8 objects using their fingers or acting it out. So it's the understanding that any whole can be represented in parts. So for example, if you have 6 blocks, go ahead and explain to the children that 6 is the addition of every individual block, or it can be a group of 2, 2, and 2, or it can be a group of 4 blocks and 2 blocks, or 3 and 3, or 1 or 5. So having them come up with those sets to be able to add and also subtract. And this is a standard that is not done immediately. So we're not necessarily doing this in September or October, but later on in February or in March, this is where we should be at by then. So how do we do number and operations in the classroom? Children can use their fingers to show, for example, how many frogs are on the log and how many have jumped into the pond. So that's 2 different sets. Begin to identify that 4 blocks can be made by adding 4 individual blocks, or 2 sets of 2 blocks, or 1 block and 3 blocks. And teachers can plan activities to help children recognize part to whole relationship of numbers. There's songs that you can include that demonstrate the leaving or the joining of a set. For example, 10 little monkeys jumping on the bed, among many, many others. So the third component is patterns. So what are patterns? Pattern is the arrangement of things that are in order and repeated. If children see patterns in their world and connect them to mathematics, they are better able to remember what they have learned and transfer the knowledge to new situations. And there are patterns in all types of things in our lives. There are 3 standards for patterns. They're all on the same slide. They get sequentially harder. The first one is very simple. It is the ability to identify and extend a simple A-B pattern. Like you see here, red, green, red, green. The second one asks for the children to be able to now duplicate that simple pattern that you just showed them. So now you will stop creating it yourself. You will create maybe an example, and then give the children the opportunity to recreate either that example or even their own example, right? Teachers can ask, can you make this pattern with other toys or with other colors? The third one is a little harder. It's recognizing the unit of repeat of a more complex pattern and extend that pattern. So it's, for example, like you see here, white, green, green, white, green, green. Or this one is more of an ABC pattern, which is red, yellow, brown, red, yellow, brown. And you want to encourage the children to go ahead and complete the pattern or create their own in the same way that you just did the pattern. So how do we do patterns in the classroom? You could do them during transitions. For example, when you are lining up, you could put them in boy, girl, but instead of the teacher doing it, you would encourage one of the children to create a pattern. So they could even do boy, boy, girl as a different pattern. Children listen to a clapping pattern and repeat it with stomps on the ground. So that's a little bit more difficult because now they're not repeating exactly what the teacher is doing. Or ask them to extend a pattern with banana, apple, orange, or the actual drawings of the banana, apple, orange, where then they repeat that pattern or create their own. Teachers can point out repeating patterns in the classroom or environment. Patterns happen almost everywhere, and it's very important that we point them out, especially in nature. Model patterns using musical instruments. That's one of the funnest ways that I used to like introducing patterns to my children. Or show children a pattern with hands-on materials and ask them to extend it. So now I would like to introduce Miss Anna, who's going to take us through the next 3 components.
Thank you, Gretel. Well, so far we've learned a lot. And I know it's lots of information to take in, but hopefully it's making sense to you. And as you'll notice, all these components are interconnected, right? You will notice a lot of similarities as well as differences in the components, but they all come together when we work math in the classroom. So geometry is what's next, and geometry is component number 4. So let's talk about what geometry is. Geometry is the branch of mathematics concerned with the properties and relations of points, lines, surfaces, solids, and higher dimensional analogs. Now, I know that sounds very complicated, but basically, geometry is the part of math that studies the size, shapes, positions, and dimensions of things. Like squares, circles, and triangles are considered more basic, simple shapes called flat in geometry. And then cubes, cylinders, and cones and spheres are considered more solid geometry. Okay, let's take a look at the standards. So standard number 1, excuse me, says recognizes and names 2-dimensional shapes of different sizes and orientation. And the example we see here is sorting and naming shapes, the basic shapes, analyzing details about those shapes, and understanding that shapes, no matter what position they're in, they don't change. The shape remains the same, right? So pretty much 4-year-olds can sort and name shapes by recognizing and exploring them throughout their daily experiences. And as they become more familiar with these shapes, they begin to notice all the attributes, right? And then they start building with shapes. With our guidance, we can show them that these shapes, as I said before, remain the same no matter how we look at them, right? Standard 2 It says describes, sorts, and classifies 2- and 3-dimensional shapes using some attributes such as size, sides, and other properties like vertices. So obviously we need to expose children to a variety of materials to allow them to explore shapes. And we want to see that the children are understanding this concept both verbally and non-verbally. Okay, because 4-year-olds can start sorting the shapes and naming 2- and 3-dimensional shapes, especially in the block area, right? So as intentional teachers, we need to plan a variety of materials and activities and interesting and provoking questions and comments about what they're doing. For example, when we say that's a triangle because it has 3 sides. And if the child says, I put these rectangles together during a small group, during centers and even outside play. So they should be able to describe the details of the shape, right? Like the vertices being the corners of each shape, as well as the sides. They should be able to compare similar shapes in the environment, like the cone to a hat or a circle to a ball, like we see in the sample here on the slide. Okay. Let's look at standard 3. So standard 3 for geometry says that the child's going to create 2-dimensional shapes using other shapes. For example, putting 2 shapes together to make a rectangle. So first they have to understand and have some knowledge of the shapes, and then once they start putting them together, they realize, oh wow, I can make another shape with this one shape. So as children explore shapes and learn about them and their names, they're going to look, for example, at a diamond, which is a rhombus, we call a rhombus, and they'll notice that it can be made out of 2 triangles, or as you see on the slide here, several squares can make a cross, or a rectangle, a square, and several triangles can make a house. It's just allowing them with opportunities to manipulate and explore shapes and encouraging them to use their imagination when creating new shapes. And these, obviously, these can be cutouts, right? These shapes can be cutouts that we provide for them in different colors and different sizes. And standard 4, it says construct with 3-dimensional shapes in the environment through play. Such as building castles in the construction area. So we want opportunity for the children to engage with these materials, to construct and kind of build on the knowledge, right? The Block Center, as we know, provides a lot of opportunities for them to explore these type of shapes. So we want them to be understand that flat faces also on 3-dimensional shapes are 2-dimensional shapes as well. And they enjoy exploring and making simple structures. They start with simple ones like the one you see on the left here, which is a small house, and they can use their imagination and creativity to build larger structures like what you see here, like a castle, okay? And keep in mind that we do need to have plenty of construction materials as well as plenty of space for the children to move around the area when constructing these large structures. And we all know how popular the block and construction area is in our classroom. All right. So what does it look like in the classroom, and how can we support geometry in the classroom for children? When we see children placing the correct shapes in containers, when we see them putting blocks away by size and shape, when they make shapes using popsicle sticks, and when we see them noticing the shape is a triangle when turned in different ways, this is how we know that they're understanding the concept of geometry. Also, as teachers, we can create large circles, square, and triangle shapes on the floor made out of string or masking tape, and ask children to hunt around the room and find items that have the same shape and place them on the floor inside the appropriate shape. We can also demonstrate what I said earlier about showing the children how shapes remain the same no matter how you look at it, right? It remains the same. So obviously we need to provide lots of interesting materials for them to engage. And remember to always use the appropriate math words or math vocabulary. So in this case, we'll be talking about positional words, right, during those activities. Okay. So now we're going to look at a video. It's called Supporting Mathematical Development in Young Children. And when you look at this video, try to think of some of the ways that you encourage geometry or support geometry in the classroom with your children, and jot down some ideas that you might hear mentioned in the video. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Great, thank you. All right, so what were some of the things that you saw and you heard in that particular video? Um, Definitely, one of the first comments heard was geometry is the first mathematical concept that a young child learns, and that's very interesting. So what do you think about that? How do you incorporate geometry in your classroom? I'm sure you saw some things like at the sand table, talking about the shapes of the little scoops, right? It was a triangle, different shaped scoops that the little child was saying, oh, it's a triangle because it has three sides. So interesting how children start to understand and recognizing shapes, and they start talking about the attributes, right? Like we said earlier about the corners, the sides, or the number of sides, and how it's a visual description that they say, right? Sometimes they just start by saying, oh, that looks like, whatever, a door, right? A rectangle looks like a door. So we need to make sure that children have plenty of opportunities to interact with both 2 and 3-dimensional shapes for them to start noticing what those similarities and differences are. And like she said, also, we want to encourage children to change their perspective, right? And to see things from different angles and from different orientations. So hopefully you found that video interesting. Put in your comments, please. I would love to hear what you thought about that particular video, and what are some of the things that that you liked, or some of the things that you would like to try in your classroom. Okay, so let's move on to the next component. And the next component is spatial relations. And spatial relations is component number 5. And spatial relations specifies how some object is located in space in relation to some reference object. So it refers to children's understanding of how objects and people move in relation to each other. So for example, as babies, children use their senses to observe, and they receive information about objects and people in their environment. For example, as they start to crawl, right? What's close by, what's far away. And certainly, spatial awareness is very important in early childhood. Okay, so let's look at the standards in spatial relations. Standard number 1 says it describes relationships between objects and locations with words and gestures by constructing models to demonstrate an understanding of proximity. Would be, for example, beside, next to, between, below, over, and under. Okay, so spatial awareness is the ability to be aware of oneself in space in relation to something else, as I said. So understanding relationships between objects and locations is definitely crucial for 4-year-olds. Their ability to communicate and understand others. So spatial sense and spatial vocabulary are closely connected. So as a 4-year-old continues developing a sense of their position in relation to objects and people around them, then they are able to understand more positional language. So they can understand what in front of means, or behind, or under, and above. And they also start using these type of words in conversations with their peers and with adults. So as an example, on the slide here, you see children are involved in a parade, and you can ask them to simple stand behind such a friend, or in front of their friend, or next to their friends, right? Very simple to help them understand the concept of spatial relations. Okay, standard 2, child will use directions to move through space and find places in space. And this is a fun way to have children understand the concept of spatial relations. This particular standard wants to make sure that the children are understanding what it is to move around in space, right? Using, again, directional language in this case. So children are able to move around in obstacle course and label their movement with language. Because as 4-year-old continue to develop a sense of body position in relation to objects and people around them, they're now understanding more, and they're able to describe their position using that spatial relations vocabulary. They'll understand words like different phrases, right? They understand directional language, such as when the child is moving through the obstacle course, you're saying you're jumping, you're moving left, you're moving right, you're going up, you're going down. So that it's lots of fun that you can do inside and out. Okay, so that's standard 2. So what does it look like in the classroom? So a couple of examples. When a child tells a friend that they hid the treasure behind the wagon, this shows you that the child is understanding spatial relations. If the child explains that they are below the slide and their friend is at the top, and also if they use directional words to tell their classmates how to get to the playground. Okay, and teachers, we can support them with spatial relations by playing fun games with them, such as doggy doggy, where's the bone? Or just plain, simple asking them, put the block over in that particular area on top of the shelf. And if he does it, then you know that he's understanding. And reading a book like Rosie's Walk by Pat Hutchins. And the children can draw pictures or they can act out the story, right? Walking through the barnyard and how over the haystack, etc. Okay, you can also ask children specific objects where they are. All right. The next component is measurement. Measurement is the last component of the mathematical thinking domain, and this measurement and data has 5 standards. Okay, so what's measurement? Measurement is the process of accurately determining the extent, amount, or quantitative value of an attribute such as length, weight, volume, or area. And data is information that we collect about the world. In order to make this information useful, we need to be able to classify, sort, organize, represent, and interpret that information. Okay, so when you think of measurement, we think of measuring in feet and pounds, but really measurement is more than that. Measurement it's a fun way to determine distance, temperature, time, and the children love to measure things, right? So when we look at that, we say standard 1, the child will measure objects, attributes using a variety of standard and non-standard tools. So what are standard tools? Standard tools are the measuring tape or the ruler. Non-standard tools are other objects like string or shoe or the child's hands, right? But they can have fun doing either one. So measurement is an important area of investigation for young children. They actively participate in measuring things, and they often wonder how far away things can be or how much longer or taller they are when they start comparing to their friends. So we hear them sometimes say, oh, I'm taller than Mary, or this table is longer than the one in that area. So children love using rulers, tape measure, or even balance scales, which a lot of the classrooms have. But they can also use their hands, for example, or string, like I mentioned before. And these can be in both child-initiated or adult-led experiences to support the exploration of measurement. Standard 2 is that they'll identify measurable attributes such as length and weight and solve problems by making direct comparisons of objects. So for example, touching and directly comparing objects as they walk around the classroom, describing the attributes of objects, and ordering them by different attributes. So if, for example, if they're looking at their friends and saying, well, who is the tallest one? Mary is the tallest, just in conversation, okay? And thinking questions would help them kind of, think a little bit further when we ask them, what makes you think? How do you know that Mary is the tallest, right? To kind of provoke more thought process. And so they start to build their own knowledge about measurement as they start describing objects, comparing them, and ordering them. Okay. Standard 3, seriates. Place objects in sequence, up to 6 objects in order by height or length, such as the little blocks that we see here. Okay, simple seriation involves arranging concrete objects like blocks from shortest to longest. Seriation is the ability to arrange objects in a logical sense in order according to size. So simple seriation involves arranging concrete objects, and skills are related to more complex math concepts such as ordination or placing numbers in the correct order like 1, 2, and 3. So here we start kind of encouraging children to use their higher order thinking and problem solving skills. And as we talk about these components and the standards within, you will notice that they pretty much go from more simple to more complex. Whereas children are now beginning to, their thought process is beginning to by asking them questions and by encouraging them to think a little further, we're having them think at a higher level. Of course, we need to plan activities and provide lots of opportunities and materials for children to sort, compare, and order objects. Okay. So standard 4, the child will represent, analyze, and discuss data. And these are charts, graphs, and tallies like you see here in the sample slide. So as children become more skilled at sorting based on attributes, they're ready to have more experiences that help them categorize information, okay, like with charts or graphs. And these show collected information in a way that makes a comparison, okay? So they'll be able, for example, to sort little toy cars by size and draw a graph to represent the comparison. Or, as you see in the picture, the child is sorting in a graph the little M&Ms by color to see how many there are. Okay, so the teacher can take the children on a nature walk also to sort out some nature items and then count them. Also, tallies can be fun and very simple to do, like the sample we see on the slide. What cereal do you like? And it's clear that Cheerios won out over cornflakes. And the children are the ones that ask the question. The children are the ones that take down the tallies and then they count them. Okay, so this is all involving the children. Always making it fun and engaging for them and personal. It's always fun to collect information about things that they are interested in. Okay. All right. Standard 5 begins to predict the results of data collection. So as you see here in these examples, how many letters are in your name? So the child puts their letters to their name on the chart and then they count. You can make this a prediction game, which is estimating what number they think will be the final number, okay? And children make predictions about it as we ask them open-ended questions. For example, the favorite ice cream. Which is your favorite ice cream? Vanilla, chocolate, or birthday cake? And then the pets at home, of course. The type of pet would be cat, dog, fish, bird. These are just some examples that that you can do with them. And again, making it fun, making it engaging, and making it personal, making it something that they want to find out about, right? And the idea is to enhance children to analyze the results, draw conclusions, and then be able to share those results. Children enjoy collecting and discussing data. It's interesting when they choose something to chart, something meaningful, and then predict. Right? So again, here children are conducting investigations, making predictions, analyzing, and drawing conclusions. All right, so how do we know that children are understanding measurement and data? Well, they can measure the height of a table or a book using linking cubes to see how tall each one is and then compare. They can use measuring cups and spoons in the sandbox to count how many scoops it takes to fill a bowl. They can measure the length of the rug using blocks, right? That sounds like fun. Or cut a piece of string and go around the room looking for items that are the same length. Or even sort their peers into sets using an attribute like hair or color. How many children have blonde hair? How many children have black hair? Even the shoe type. Who is wearing sneakers today? How many kids have sneakers on today? So that's fun. That's relevant because they're living it, right? And also educators can plan activities outside for the children to measure the distance between objects. How many steps does it take on the hoops between the slide and the swing? And again, providing measuring tools for children to use as they explore. Fun things other than just rulers and yardsticks and balance scales, but more interesting things, things that they can have fun with. Okay, so let's look at a video now. That's going to talk about supporting data in the classroom. So as we watch the video, again, jot down some ideas that you might hear, some strategies that you might think interesting for you to try in your classroom, and kind of reflect. It's important to reflect on our own practice and say to yourself, well, how do I incorporate this in the classroom? How can I make it fun for the kids?
Anna, are you able to view the video?
No, can you share the screen?
Yeah, it's not functioning. I'm sorry. We'll send out the link to everybody.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay. All
But
right,
that,
you want
but we'll send out the link. It is also from the same provider, and the
to?
link is at the end. So it'll be a little homework for you. It's a great video. It's similar to the one before.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint then, and we'll continue. Okay, um, so as we think about mathematical thinking and how, again, how it looks in the classroom, just think of some fun, creative ways that you can incorporate math throughout the day. Again, math is really all around us, right? And it's all about making it fun. It's all about your approach and how you can come up with interesting ways to incorporate all these standards in your activities. We can provide games for children to practice these skills like Candyland or Hopscotch, as you see here, and certainly dedicate time each day to teach math concepts and integrate it, right? As we saw some of the examples in the videos, intentional transitions, right? And definitely hands-on learning. Just being mindful of how you can engage with the children through open-ended questions and provoke those thinking skills. Okay, and then again, be present. Open-ended questions. For example, what would happen if we took two away from the tower? How many cookies do we have on the snack plate? Just being in the moment, right? And having them, again, look at things. And they're not really understanding sometimes, what's happening, but you are really getting them to think at that higher level. So we provide activities and materials that appeal to them, again, to their interests, to their abilities, right? To the abilities of the entire group, the entire range of children in the classroom. Because again, not all of the children are going to be at the same level, like Gretel mentioned earlier. If the child is ready to continue, at a higher level with more challenging activities, by all means, do that. But certainly, start at their level, start where they're at, and then challenge them, and then scaffold their learning throughout. And so we certainly want to include a variety of storybooks that are easily mathematized, using content in storybook to help children understand the math concepts that we're introducing. So we have a list of books to encourage mathematical thinking. And I do want to mention that at the end of the mathematical thinking domain in the standards book, you will find a long list of books that are suggested there to encourage math skills. But these are some additional books that we put together for you all. Math is fun, and children can have fun with them. So There are many books listed. There's tons of activities also on Pinterest. You know, some great ideas of some great creative, fun ways to incorporate math in the classroom. So in summary, I just want to say that math is everywhere, as we said in the beginning, right? It helps children make sense of their world by observing, interacting with their environment. And as I read that, let's go back to the beginning of the webinar. So when we asked, how do you feel about math? So hopefully, after reviewing the math thinking domain from the standards, you now have a better understanding of what children should be learning at this age. We shared strategies and activities to help you engage children in ways that will provoke their cognitive thinking skills, and we want to promote their curiosity. That's important as they learn about the world around them. Remember that math is really exploring, discussing, investigating, inventing, analyzing, representing, predicting, and so much more. And it's through mistakes and challenges that we learn. And that's why we want to challenge children, but also challenge ourselves. Because math is everywhere, and it really does help make sense of everything for the kids. So I hope that you can agree that math is easily integrated with all the learning areas in your classroom, and I hope you challenge yourself to do more. So Gretel's now going to continue with the remainder of the webinar.
Thank you, Anna, for that information. As you can see in front of you, you have all the links to the different resources and the standards we have just reviewed. And the last link right there is the Center for Early Childhood Education. That is the YouTube channel where these videos are from. And like we mentioned before, we're so sorry that last video could not play, but it's called Data in Early Childhood. So go ahead and just check that out. They have a multitude of other videos too, not only on math, but also on science and literacy and other areas of learning. So please take a screenshot or a picture of this for future reference. In a couple seconds, you're going to see two images, and we want to just highlight that the standards are not just for 4 to kindergarten, they are actually from birth to kindergarten. And since our focus is on VPK today, we only discussed those 4-year-olds. However, if you have colleagues that are infant teachers, toddler teachers, please take them to the same website. Just choose the different age range, and you're going to see the standards for every age level as well. And so just a friendly reminder that your certificate is going to be emailed to you to the email you registered with within 24 hours. Also, there's going to be a survey that's going to appear at the end of this webinar. Please complete it. We would love to know your feedback. Add all your comments there. And we're very grateful for the time you spent with us today. Here is our information and our email address in case you would like that step-by-step process on how to go ahead and check out those standards on the website. So reach out to Anna or myself. And we want to say thank you very much for your participation today, for answering the polls, for watching the videos, for adding your comments in the question box. There's a lot of comments, and Anna and I appreciate your time.
Thank you all. Thank you for participating today. Loved having you.
Yes, thank you. So Anna, we have a couple of moments before we close down. I see some questions here.
Okay.
I see people are saying, I'm not able to download. What can I do? Well, you can email us. Let me put that slide back so you can see our email address. That is our email address there.
Yes.
Go ahead and reach out to us if you have any questions or if you are not able to download that handouts.
We'll be happy to email them to you.
Yeah. A lot of great comments saying that they love the training, that they're very grateful for the training. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. And well, our purpose of these trainings is to give you more ideas, to encourage you, to say that, you know, a lot of you are already doing most of these things. And now all we're doing is giving it a name. So now you know that you're doing cardinality or you're doing measurement in data. Right, Anna?
Exactly, exactly. Gretel, there's a comment about putting the sites back. I'm assuming the websites. Can you go
Okay,
back to
great.
the
Let me do
website
that.
slide?
There it
It's
is.
important for them. So take a screenshot or take a picture so you can have that very important information. These
Okay.
are great questions. Yes.
Yeah. And if there are no further questions or comments, thank you very much to all of you. We had a lot of people in on the webinar today, and we're hopeful that you're able to take some of these strategies and ideas back to your classroom. And please check out that website for the YouTube videos. Great resources are available from Early Childhood of Connecticut. So hip hip to Connecticut. Yes.
I love
Right.
this comment. Math is life skills.
Yes.
Debbie said, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Debbie Parmesano, for that. Math is life skills. I love it.
All right.
Excellent.
Ms. Anna, I don't know if you have any more comments, but we are done.
Mm. Oh, this comment, so this one says, sometimes this information is too much for the children.
Yeah.
And it's true, but it's all
It
on
is.
how we present it, right?
Yeah.
It's all on how we present it.
Yeah, and I also want to reiterate that these are actually the entire standards for mathematics. So it's a lot of information that we just presented to you, and we understand that. But the purpose of it is that it's not done all in one sitting, 1 month, one moment. No, this is something that you do throughout the entire VPK school year. So the standard is where you want your children to be at by the end.
Right.
So that's how you have, when you read it, you say, okay, by the end of the year, my children will be able to do this and this and this,
Exactly.
because this is what the
Exactly.
standard is calling for.
And there is a comment here that says 1 year you may have a class that does well, and the other year there are many lower levels of the same material. So that's exactly what we're talking about. So you just have to meet children where they're at and challenge them as you go along, of course, little by little. This way, we don't want to stress children out, and we don't want to stress ourselves out either, because we have that long-term objective, but we need, the short-term objectives as well as we go along. And this just kind of, helps you out. And the standards really lay it out for you, pretty much what we need to do. So, we need to be flexible, and, we just need to work with the children as they need us. And I saw another comment about working with math skills with small group rather than large group. And that's very true. It's absolutely very true. One-on-one and small group activities. Absolutely. That's a very good point. All right.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar now.
Great comments. Thank you for participating.
And thank you, Ms. Anna, for co-facilitating with me today.
Thank you, Gretel. It was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Me too. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.